Chapter 121 of Shrimadbhagavatam, Trishanku Swarga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Kaushika was intent on his meditation, and Trishanku stood by silently without disturbing him. And so he stood for a long time. Kaushika felt someone standing near him and opened his eyes. He saw the dark and ugly looking Chandala standing at some distance. His eyes and his face were the very picture of woe, and Kaushika, whose heart was already ready with sympathy, felt that this man was suffering intensely. He called him near and asked him, "How can I help you? I can see that you are Trishanku, the king of Ayodhya. You are a great warrior and a good king. Tell me, what can I do for you? I can guess that this Chandala's form which you are suffering is the result of some curse. Tell me what I can do to alleviate your pain." Hearing the words of affection which were spoken by Kaushika, the king was overcome with gratitude and his eyes filled with tears. He folded his palms and said, "My Guru Vashishta and his sons have refused to help me realize my desire. I asked them to make me reach the heavens with this human body, and they would not grant me my desire. I have performed 100 yagnas, but they are not enough, evidently to allow me the privilege. I have never in my life spoken a lie, and I will never do so hereafter. I swear that I have ruled my subjects with great affection. Never once have I transgressed the rules which a Kshatriya should follow. I have always tried to please elders, and I have always set my mind on dharma. Seeing that all this has been but futile, when it cannot grant me a small desire, I realize that man's attempts are always useless, and fate is the only powerful factor. Everything is controlled by fate, and fate is the ultimate refuge of all. I have now come to you, asking you if you will help me realize my desire, to reach the heavens with this mortal body. I have no one else to whom I can go with this request. It is up to you to help me and to prove to the world that even fate can be subdued by the attempts of man, that the will of man is more powerful." Kaushika was filled with affection for this child of fate. He spoke in a soft and gentle voice, and he said, "O king, you are welcome to be with me in my home here. The world knows what a righteous monarch you are. I have decided to help you. Do not be afraid. I will summon all the rishis and ask them to help me to perform my yagna. With this form, with this Chandala's form, which the Guru's curse has given you, with this form I say, I will make you ascend the heavens. Kaushika had been approached by you. You have considered him to be your refuge, and you cannot go away empty-handed. I will do it for you." Kaushika then instigated his sons to collect all that was necessary for the performance of a yagna. He summoned all his disciples and said, "Go and ask all the rishis to come here. Tell them it is my request. Let them bring their entire ashramas with them." The disciples went in all quarters to bring the many rishis. They came, all of them, to the presence of Kaushika, all except Vashishta and his sons. The words spoken by Vashishta's sons were conveyed to Kaushika. They had said, "Very comical indeed will this yagna be, with a Chandala as the object of the yagna and a Kshatriya to perform it. It will be a wonderful sight. One is doubtful as to what the participants will do, how they will react. We wonder how the divine beings will react when they are summoned to receive their share of the havis at the hands of a non-Brahmin. They will have to eat food touched by a Chandala and served by a Kshatriya." Kaushika was extremely incensed by their words, and he cursed them to become Nishadhas. Kaushika then addressed the rishis who had come there at his request and said, "This is King Trishanku, a descendant of the noble Ikshvaku, a righteous king famed in all the three worlds. He has come to me with a request. He wants to reach the heavens with his body. I have promised to help him, and I appeal to all of you to assist me in this attempt." Hearing the words of Kaushika, The rishis said to themselves, "This Kaushika is a man with a very short temper. His anger is dangerous. If we do not assist him, he is sure to get angry, and we can never guess what he will do if his anger is turned against us. We have seen the fate of the sons of Vashishta. It is better to help him perform the yajna." Kaushika was the yajaka, and the rishis were all willing to do the needful. The yajna proceeded in the proper manner. At the final stage, when the havis was to be offered, Kaushika summoned the devas one by one to receive their share, but not one of them came to accept the havis. Their disapproval of the yajna was obvious. Kaushika was furious at this insult, but he composed himself, and with his eyes blazing with anger and his frame trembling, he raised the sruva, the spoon with which ghee is poured into the sacrificial fire, aloft and said, "Look on the power of my tapas. I will raise this king to the heavens with a human body." Kaushika then turned to the king and said, "I command you, O king, to rise into the air and to reach the heavens with this body of yours. If at all I have performed any tapas, I give the result of all that with this end in view, to raise you to the heavens. Rise, Trishanku, and reach the heavens." Everyone was watching with bated breath. Suddenly Trishanku began to rise above the ground. He folded his palms and saluting the rishi, he rose in the air. And even as they were all looking on, he vanished into the clouds. Indra, however, was not pleased with this intruder. He said, "Trishanku, go back to the earth. You are not fit to dwell in the heavens, cursed as you are by your guru. We are not prepared to make you one of us." Trishanku was pushed rudely, and he found himself falling downwards. He called out to Kaushika and said, "My lord, they have thrown me out and I am falling down. Save me." Kaushika was very angry and very sad too. He could not bear the thought that the devas could be so jealous and so selfish. He said, "Stop wherever you are." The fall of Trishanku was arrested halfway. Then, in the presence of all the rishis, Kaushika, like another Brahma, began to create a new heaven for Trishanku. In the southern direction, he created the 7 rishis and other stars. He created the several clusters of stars. He then said, "I am going to create another Indra who will eclipse the present Indra." Kaushika began his task, and his intention was to make an entirely new host of devas also. There was great commotion in the heavens, and the rishis and the devas from the heavens approached Kaushika with great humility and said, "Kaushika, please listen to our words. It has been said that one who has been cursed by his guru cannot reach the heavens, and that was why we did what we did. It was in no way meant to cast aspersions on your greatness." Hearing their words, Kaushika said, "You are jealous of him, and so you treated him thus. I will not let him come back to the earth. He is a righteous man, and he does not deserve the curse of his guru, nor the punishment you are trying to mete out to him." The devas then asked, "We take back what we said. We agree to anything you say." Kaushika said, "I will not go back on my promise to Trishanku that I will let him go to the heavens with his earthly body. The heavens I have created for him will be permanent. The stars and the 7 rishis and the entire galaxy which has been created by me will be permanent. Indras may come and Indras may go, but the heaven I have built for Trishanku will last forever. Trishanku Swarga will be forever." The devas led by Indra agreed with humility, and Indra said, "So be it. This world of stars and gods which you have created out of your tapas will remain forever, proclaiming to the world your greatness. Trishanku will rule the heaven built for him, like another Indra. All the stars will move in their orbits for him, and his fame and name will last forever." Kaushika was satisfied by their promise, and Trishanku was very happy. And the rishis went back to their ashramas, and the devas to their abode. Only Kaushika was left. He was all alone, and his treasury of tapas was empty. He had given all he had for the sake of a king whose suffering was too much. Kaushika, however, was happy that he had helped someone in trouble. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Chapter 122 of Shrimadbhagavatam, Shunhashepa. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Kaushika, after the Trishanku episode, told himself, "This tapas which I performed in the south has had interruptions and I have used it all up. I will go towards the west and begin all over again. I will choose a spot which is very much concealed from the sight of people, and on the shores of some lake I will have my ashrama and perform my tapas there. In the holy spot named Pushkara Kshetra, on the banks of a lake, Kaushika began his tapas again. As has already been mentioned elsewhere, Trishanku's son was Harishchandra. He was granted a son by name Varuna on condition that the king gave him back to the Lord of the oceans as soon as he was born. Harishchandra became too fond of his son to part with him. He gave excuse after excuse and kept postponing the Naramheda which had been promised. Rohita, the child, had grown up to be a youth, and he came to know about his father's rash promise. He went away to the forest and hoped to escape the fate meant for him. For years he roamed the forest. Varuna, with the intention of punishing the king, made him suffer the dread disease by name Mahodara, dropsy. When he heard that his father was very ill, Rohita felt that he had to go back to the kingdom and try to save his father's life. Indra stopped him and sent him on a Tirtha Yatra. Again and again it happened, and 5 years passed. Rohita finally decided to go back to his kingdom and to his father. On his way home, Rohita met a Brahmin by name Ajigartha. He was travelling with his 3 sons and his wife. The prince thought that his father's disease would be cured and he could also escape death if only he could get someone else to die instead of himself. The sight of the Brahmin gave the idea to him. If he could sacrifice some other youngster to Varuna, the calamity to his royal household could perhaps be averted. He saluted the Brahmin, who stood silent to find out what the prince wanted. Rohita said, "My lord, I will give you 100,000 cows. Are you willing to trade one of your sons for it?" The Brahmin was taken aback and wanted to know more about it. The prince told him about his predicament. He said, "I am the only son and our line will be dead if I should die. My father also is very sick. By giving your son, you will be saving 2 lives and you will be serving the country also. Will you give one of your sons to me?" Ajigartha said, "I will not part from my eldest son. He is too dear to me and I will not be able to live without him." The wife of the Brahmin said, "My husband, the Bhargava, says that our eldest son is dear to him and therefore he cannot be given to him. I want you to know that the youngest child is very dear to me and I cannot bear to give him up. It is always the way of the world that the eldest is the favorite of the father and the youngest that of the mother." The second son's name was Shunhashepa. He spoke in a soft and slightly sad voice. He said, "Listen to me, O prince. My father favors my eldest brother and my mother, my younger brother. It is as good as understood that I have been sold to you by my parents. Take me with you." The prince gave the promised number of cows to the Brahmin, and he was very happy to take the Brahmin boy with him. It was noon when Rohita and Shunhashepa reached the holy spot by name Pushkara. There the young Brahmin boy saw Kaushika absorbed in tapas. The child was hungry, thirsty and very depressed because he knew that he was unwanted by his parents, or else would they have sold him for a few cows knowing that he was going to his death? He knew that Kaushika was distantly related to the Bhargava clan, and he felt that he had a claim on him. Sunashepa impulsively rushed to the presence of Kaushika and fell on his lap, sobbing. Rudely awakened from his trance, Kaushika looked at the intruder. He saw a young boy with begone face, and he was sobbing his heart out. The child said, "I have no father and no mother. As for kinsmen, I have none. You are my only refuge. You must save my life. I have been told that you are very powerful, very noble, and very compassionate, that you can never bear to see anyone unhappy. I saw you and I have come to you for help." Kaushika wanted to know what was worrying him, and the boy told him the entire story. Kaushika's heart was full of love for this fondling. Sunashepa said, "My lord, since my father has sold me for the purpose of the king's yajna, I do not want the yajna to be spoiled, nor do I want to lose my life. Only you can work things in such a way that both these will be accomplished. I want to live long, perform tapas, and then reach the heavens. You are the succor of unfortunate beings like me, and you are a father to me who is now an orphan." Kaushika pacified the weeping child with gentle words and promises, and he summoned his sons and said, "Parents create their children so that they will guide them to heaven, to assure them of a place in the next world. I want to see if you will justify your births. Here is this child who has come to me asking me to save him. You are all well read and you have acquired so much tapas. Do what is expected of you by me. One of you should become the Yagna Pashu for the Narameda to be performed by Harishchandra. Thus, I will be saving this child and will also let the Yagna be concluded successfully. Will you do it?" The sons, led by Madhuchandas, considered it to be a big joke, and laughing at their father said, "Father, how can you find it in your heart to abandon your own sons for the sake of some fondling who weeps his heart out? It is improbable that we should accept your suggestion, as improbable as it is to eat the flesh of a dog." Kaushika's anger rose to the surface, and he said, "Your behavior and your words are unworthy of your birth. You are not fit to be my sons. Those who disobey a father are not fit to be honored. Like the sons of Vasishta, you will also be Nishadas and eat the flesh of dogs for 1,000 years." After cursing his sons, Kaushika turned to Shunashepa and assured him that he would somehow save his life. He said, "You must go with the Prince Rohita and allow yourself to be tied to the sacrificial post, the Yajnastamba. They will place garlands of red flowers round your neck and smear red sandal paste on your body. They will tie you up with ropes which have been purified by incantations. I will teach you these 2 verses, and in your mind repeat them till you have memorized them. Then during the yajna sing these hymns. The yajna will be as good as performed successfully." Sunashepa learnt the hymn with great care. He then went to the presence of Rohita, who had been resting all the while. The boy said, "Let us hurry and go to your city. Take me to the spot where the yajna is to be performed. I am well prepared for it." Rohita was happy to see him so willing, and they hurried to the presence of the sick king. Harishchandra was immensely pleased at the turn of events. He went to the Yagnashala and began the performance of it, although he was sorely afflicted by the disease Mahodara. Kaushika came there, and the king made him the Hota. Jamadagni was the Adhyavaru. Vashishta was Brahma. Ayasya was the Udgatha. Harishchandra tied the young boy to the Yagnastupa, and when they were getting ready to sacrifice him, the young child began to sing in his childish treble the hymns taught to him by Kaushika. The Yagnashala was silent, first with surprise and then with admiration for the noble hymns which were in praise of the Devas, Indra, Varuna and others. Indra was pleased and so was Varuna. They appeared in person and granted long life to Sunashepa. The king was forgiven for his lapse and he was cured of his disease, Mahoddara. The experience he had gone through because of his excessive attachment to his son had taught him a lesson, and Harishchandra wanted to learn Brahma Vidya from Kaushika. Kaushika was only too happy to do so. Harishchandra was a changed man after this. Kaushika adopted Sunashepa as his own son and told his sons, Madhuchandas by name, that they should treat him as their elder brother. He belongs to the Bhrigu clan, said the father. He is now one of you. The elder sons were not happy at the thought of the adoption, and the father, angry at their behavior, cursed them to be low-born. 50 of them were cursed. The other 50 sons, led by Madhuchandas, fell at his feet and said, We are willing to obey you in everything. We are only too happy to accept Sunashepa as our elder brother. The father naturally was very pleased with them and said, I am pleased with you. You are good sons. Led by this new son of mine, you will be known as the Kaushikas, and our house will be famed the world over as Kaushika Gotra. Kaushika continued and his tapas for another 1,000 years. At the end of it, Brahma appeared before him and said, We are pleased and amazed by your tapas. We are pleased to confer on you the title Rishi. Kaushika was not satisfied with this. It was not enough for him. A Rishi, he knew, was far inferior to the title Brahma Rishi. He was determined to achieve the status of Brahma Rishi, and he pursued his tapas more intensely. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Chapter 1, 2, 3 of Shrimadbhagavatam, Kaushika's lapse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The Devas were worried about the tapas of Kaushika. Indra was afraid that his status as Indra might be in danger. He decided to disturb the tapas and he summoned to his presence Menaka, the Apsara of his court. He said, You are the best among my Apsaras. I want your help. I will tell you what I want you to do. Kaushika is performing tapas and he is glowing like the noonday sun. So fierce is the tapas he has accumulated. If he does succeed, there is every danger of my being pushed out of my throne. I want you to go to his presence. He has all his senses under control, and with single-mindedness, he is absorbed in meditation. With your beauty and with your winning ways, you should tempt him and make him succumb to the weakness which is in the heart of every man. Make him abandon his tapas, and I will be pleased with you. Menaka was afraid to go. She said, Lord, I have been told that he is very powerful and that he is very quick-tempered. Think of the combination of these two qualities, my Lord. Tapas and anger. How can I survive these? You are yourself afraid of him, and yet you want me to face him. He has cursed sons of Vashishta. He was a Kshatriya, and by his own efforts, he has become a Brahmin. He has been like Brahma in creating a new heaven for the sake of King Trishanku. Such a powerful tapaswin will surely have gone beyond the sway of the senses. How can I dare to go near him? What if he curses me? If you can assure me that he will not curse me, I will do what you ask me to do. Send Manmata and Vasanta with me. Make the wind Mandanila also to come with us. Under such pleasing conditions, which are always conducive to the act of love, I will try to tempt him. Menaka went down to the earth, and in the neighborhood of the spot where Kaushika was, she spent her time waiting for the proper moment when she could make her appearance. Kaushika had gone up from his meditation and was moving about one day. Menaka thought that the chance she had been waiting for had come her way now, and she was not wrong. She walked around in the lovely spot where he was. Looking at her beautiful form and her winning ways, Kaushika was bewitched, and he succumbed to the temptation. 5 years passed, and another 5 years. He woke up suddenly from this dream one day. He realized The 10 precious years had been wasted. His tapas had been disturbed and he had lost much of what he had accumulated. He was full of sorrow and anger with himself. He then realized that it was the work of the devas who were set on disturbing any tapas performed by anyone. When she saw him like this, Menaka, who held a child in her arms, was overcome with fear lest he should vent his anger on her. She stood with folded palms and her tears were trembling on her lashes. But Kaushika was not angry with her. He told her that he was going to continue where he had left off. He went to the banks of the river Kaushiki, who had been his sister Satyavati. His tapas was terrible. After a long time, the Devas and Brahma were pleased with him. Brahma led the host and they appeared before Kaushika and said, Kaushika, you are now a Maharshi. You have performed a severe penance. I tell you that you are the greatest of the rishis. Kaushika was neither pleased nor displeased with the words of Brahma. He said, with my tapas I have earned the title Maharshi. But tell me, my lord, have I become one who has conquered his senses? Brahma said, I am afraid not. You are not a complete Jitendriya. Kaushika's face fell and Brahma said, you must try to achieve that also. The most difficult part of his tapas was performed by Kaushika during the next few years. He held his arms aloft and he starved. Only the air was his food. In the midst of 5 fires he stood during summer, and during the cold season he stood in the midst of water. His tapas had become intense, and as was his custom, Indra summoned one of the apsaras to tempt him. It was Ramba this time who was summoned by Indra. He said, go and try to tempt Kaushika as Menaka did before. Ramba was very much afraid, and she said, I dare not go, my lord. His anger will be unbearable. But Indra assured her that nothing would happen to her, and she went down to the earth as her predecessor had done. Indra told her that he would himself be with her. The nightingale would sing from the branches of a beautiful tree near where Kaushika was, and on that tree would be seated Manmata and Indra. Ramba went to the earth, and there she reached the presence of Kaushika. While he was in the midst of his meditation, Kaushika was disturbed by the music of the nightingale. He smelled the perfume of the flowers which would normally grow in the season named Vasanta, spring. He opened his eyes and he saw this beautiful woman standing before him. Kaushika knew that it was the work of Indra, or else how could Vasanta come long before it was due? And again, how could a beautiful and delicately made woman find her way into the heart of the terrible forest unless she had been brought there? His anger came up at once and he cursed Ramba. You have come here at the behest of Indra to tempt me by your wiles and your wanton ways. You want to rob me of my tapas. You will be turned to stone and stay on the earth for 1,000 years. The moment he cursed her, Kaushika repented his action and said, Brahma was right. I am not a Jitendriya. I am not able to subdue my anger. So long as the senses are unconquered, the Atman will not attain tranquility. From now on, I will never be angry and I will not speak a word. I will drain myself of all feelings and perform tapas once again. Then and only then will I attain the fruits of my tapas. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Chapter 124 of Shrimadbhagavatam. Vishwamitra the Brahmarshi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Kaushika abandoned the north and walked towards the east, and there he again performed tapas. For 1,000 years he was silent, and the world as well as the celestial world were all being burnt up by the fire of his penance. Kaushika had become as thin as a stick, and he had surmounted several obstacles placed in the way of his achievement. He banished anger completely from his mind. One day, he broke his fast and cooked some rice for himself. Just as he was about to eat it, Indra, taking the form of a Brahmin, came to him and begged him for food. Kaushika spoke not a word and gave the entire food to the Brahmin and resumed his tapas. It had now become more intense. Even the air which he was breathing he had controlled so well that he would stay without breathing for a long time. Smoke began to emanate from his head and the world was suffering because of his tapas. Indra and the Devas went to Brahma and told him, Kaushika has now begun to glow with the greatness of his tapas. If you do not grant him what he had been wanting all these years, his tapas will destroy the three worlds. His glory is so great that the sun and fire have lost their lustre. The seas are lashing their waves in torment and the mountains are spitting fire. The earth is trembling and there is storm in the skies. Kaushika is like the fire at the end of time and it is up to you to save the universe from this fire. Brahma hurried to the presence of Kaushika and said, Welcome to you, Brahmarshi. We have been pleased with the tapas you have performed. With your own efforts, you have achieved the status of Brahmarshi. May you prosper. A thin flash of pleasure lit up the face of Kaushika. He prostrated before Brahma and said, If what you have granted me is really true, if I am Brahmarshi and if I am long lived by your grace, let the Vedas accept me as Brahmarshi. I have but one desire. Vashishta, your son, should recognize me as such. They brought Vashishta and he smiled with affection at Kaushika and said, You are a great man, a Brahmarshi. There is no doubt about it. Kaushika honored Vashishta and he was free to go where he pleased. The foremost thought in his mind was to do good to others, and he was given the name Vishwamitra, the friend of the universe. Vishwamitra, the friend of the universe. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.